Every morning you complete your daily routine. You turn on the lights, unplug your phone, use the hairdryer, or open the fridge. But do you ever stop to think about where all this energy you use is coming from?
90% of the energy we use comes from non-renewable resources, which means that we have a very finite amount of energy available for our use.
Fossil fuels make up these non-renewable resources. Coal, petroleum, and natural gas are fuels that currently power the majority of America. However, the process it takes to acquire energy from these fuels is leaving more of an impact on us than we know. While they have been used abundantly for energy production for hundreds of years, they have many hazardous health and environmental effects.
When coal is burned, harmful byproducts are released into the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfuric acids, arsenic, and ash. This waste causes respiratory problems and heart failure for any person exposed to its pollution, basically the majority of American citizens.
Environmentally speaking, retrieving coal from the earth results in a method called mountaintop removal. This is when ecosystems on top of mountains are destroyed so coal is easier to access, but this takes a toll on the surrounding environment. Habitats are destroyed, waterways are entirely polluted, chemicals such as mercury, radioactive dust, and sulfur that belong underground have now surfaced and are on top of our water and soil. We need to stop its use now, but as of 2014, oil and natural gas have made up 28% of our energy sources. Both are toxic, flammable, limited in supply, and not worth the effects they have on the environment or human life.
To extract natural gas and oil from the earth, energy companies use a process called hydraulic fracturing, which is more commonly known as fracking.
More often than not, this drilling process pollutes aquifers and soil with the excess sand, water, and chemical mixtures that are pumped into the ground. Byproducts released from the use and production of natural gas and oil are hydrocarbon, sulfur, water, helium, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide.
What I know about fracking is that it's a deep drilling, water, pressurized source to break up ground soil to release oil that's deep underground. I know that it can also cause damage to substructure in the Earth's crust.
What I do know is it's not good.
I wouldn't want them doing it next to where I live. Or where I live.
Not only are these gases bad for the surrounding environment and people, but they also find their way into our atmosphere. When they enter our air, they become air pollution, acid rain, and greenhouse gases, trapping heat and solar radiation in our atmosphere. Easily accessible oil is becoming harder and harder to find, so companies use more expensive and destructive methods to access the oil. Tar sands, for example, is a thick sludge containing oil. It's found under the boreal forests of Alberta, Canada. The extraction process involves clear-cutting large amounts of forests and diverting the water supply so the topsoil can be stripped away. The heavy oil also requires much more processing before it can be used. 5-story-high drills are installed over the forest so it can be transported to refineries. The process releases 3 to 5 times more CO2, and 85% of the energy is lost, and it destroys entire ecosystems, so the net energy yield is very low. The production and use of natural gas and oil are bad for us and the environment, but we still continue to use these limited resources. More than half the oil reserves have been used and depleted entirely. As our supply diminishes, prices will rise so high that oil and natural gas will become as rare a commodity as diamonds. It's time for us to make a switch. We must say that enough is enough.
we cannot continue to use these resources without suffering severe environmental and economic consequences.
For example, if just 5% of American households switched to solar, it would be the equivalent of taking 7,700,000 cars off the road, or removing 89,600,000 pounds of CO2 from the atmosphere. Marine Clean Energy, otherwise known as MCE, is a service that's available to all Marin residents for only a few more dollars a month and provides completely renewable energy.
Local considerations, because we want to buy power that's as close to our service area as possible. Okay, so you could do it on your own house, and then that solar would offset your usage, and when you're not using energy, it would go back onto the electricity grid. Maybe give a little bit of electricity to your neighbors. That's one kind of solar. The other kind of solar would be a large scale, it's what I'm calling utility scale project, and that's something that you'd build maybe in a field. We put a price on the environmental impact of that electricity, it would make a huge difference in the cost of electricity. But then moving forward, we wanted to get a mixture of several renewable sources.
Solar power is a low-maintenance and highly reliable energy resource, but that's not to say it doesn't have its downsides. Though solar panels are shown to save buyers money in the long run, the initial costs of panels on top of permit costs add up to be expensive. As well as costs, solar panels require a large amount of space that some smaller homes are not able to ensure, but they can get their energy from solar farms.
The sun is actually a great nuclear reactor. I mean, if you like, you can think of solar power as nuclear power. It's just that the nuclear reactor is a comfortable 93 million miles away. And the sun delivers a lot of energy. There's 1,000 watts in every square meter of sunlight streaming towards us. Sure, it's not always sunny when you need it to be, but the amount of energy the sun is giving us is really quite large.
Another one of the leading renewable energy sources is wind power. Newer, taller, and more efficient wind turbines have allowed wind power to become one of the leading resources of renewable energy. With lower land consumption, a smaller ecological footprint, and massive potential, some countries have been able to use wind power to provide up to 40% of their energy. Smaller turbines can even be used to power homes. Even the southern USA could produce 31% of the world's necessary energy.
On top of having no direct carbon emissions, wind turbines also have a high net energy yield, which means that nearly all of the energy that goes into wind turbines also comes out. It's actually the least expensive and least polluting way to produce energy from cradle to grave.
In order for wind power to become reliable enough to become a main source of energy, the turbines will need a backup source of energy in case the wind dies down, and a new power grid will need to be installed. However, a new power grid is necessary no matter what in order to become more efficient. Strategic planning should capitalize on local wind, limit visual and sound pollution, and the distribution of bird migrations. In fact, cats kill more birds than wind turbines combined.
One wind turbine can produce as much power as a whole field full of solar panels when the wind is blowing.
Being a part of the Ring of Fire, the Bay Area is a great place for the use of geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is energy that is drawn from the heat of the earth.
And there are many misconceptions about geothermal energy, often causing people to believe the downsides of geothermal power, being its cost and possibility of seismic activity, outweighs the positives.
But when it is well designed, it is efficient, reliable, clean, and cost-effective. Another renewable source of energy is a methane digester, taking human or animal waste and compost and turning it into energy.
The conversion to methane is the result of anaerobic digestion, a biochemical process in which organic matter is decomposed by bacteria in the absence of oxygen.
This process is highly efficient and has a never-ending supply. Poop! The problem of sewage has turned into a solution.
Though this energy source is incredibly efficient, it has yet to be subsidized by the government, making it incredibly expensive. Unless there's an increase in demand, these digesters will continue to be scarce and unused.
Fuel cells are also a newly developed technology that converts hydrogen and oxygen, two of our most abundant elements on Earth, into fuel. As long as this hydrogen and oxygen-based fuel continues to go into the battery, the fuel cell will produce power.
Though fuel cells are not used on large-scale electricity production, as further research is put into them, they'll soon begin to evolve into a powerful energy source.
A fuel cell burns hydrogen and oxygen in an electrochemical way to make water and electricity. But you can't mine hydrogen on this planet. There's no source of it. You have to first produce the hydrogen by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen. So you should see a fuel cell as just a kind of battery. It's a high-tech battery. It's not the original source of the energy. It's storing the electricity you make using solar power and wind power, because the sun isn't always shining when you want power. The wind isn't always blowing where or when you want power, but you could use that electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, store the hydrogen and oxygen, and then run it backwards through a fuel cell when you need power.
Because each renewable energy source has downfalls, the most viable and sustainable option is to use multiple energy sources at once. By utilizing the best aspects of every energy source, we can have low costs and assure full efficiency and sustainability.
By properly educating the public about non-renewable and renewable energy sources, we can all begin to make the switch to cleaner and greener energy.
Well, it's a no-brainer because non-renewable energy sources are by definition non-renewable. So even if there was no such thing as global warming, we would run out of fossil fuels eventually. Even if nuclear power was the safest and cleanest thing on Earth, we're going to run out of uranium eventually. So it's not even a discussion of whether to switch. The question is when we switch. But I think we should do it sooner rather than later.
The energy you choose to use is not a choice that only impacts you. It affects the entire planet. What world do you want to leave for my generation, your children's generation? Do you want them to be able to breathe fresh air without the fear of toxic chemicals entering their lungs? Or drink water without being able to light it on fire because gas particles have entered the aquifers through dangerous drilling processes? Solar energy, wind energy, and bio-waste energies are the fuels of the future. The choice is simple and clear. You must choose to use renewable energy. Choose sustainable energy for your children and choose sustainable energy for the future.